All right, folks, now we're back here and we're going to start working on leak testing. Now, the leak testing involves what we just went over, the gauges. All right, this is where you're going to start putting this stuff to use. Each one of these exercises in here is set up so that the student can take his or her time and go through it, understand it thoroughly. There is no way that you're going to go through this unless you already do it in the field and understand it the first time through. But remember, you're going to be responsible for the outcome in the long run. If you go through this and you think you have it, I suggest in 72 hours come back and redo it. There's nothing saying that you have to, but I'm telling you that you're going to have a brain dump and you may waver on understanding how to do it. You only got one option here, to understand it thoroughly, because you go do this on the job and you may screw it up one time, but you won't screw it up 2 times. All right. Our little leak detecting unit has a leak in it. It's already set up. You notice that all the caps are on everything. The hoses are properly stored away. Our R22 can, all right, this is what they refer to as a virgin can. It's never been touched. All right. Your nitrogen bottle, which is located in the classroom, and if you need to know where that's at, we'll tell you. You're going to need the little bottle of leak detector. This is good for both gas and AC. All right. And then there is a leak detector device that we're going to use. All right. Now, folks, this is not cheap. All right. So I do not want to see anybody abusing it. All right. But you have to pay attention. You have to understand. So go over this as many times as you have to. Take as good of notes as you need to, so that you can understand what you have to do. All right. So the very first thing is we come up to our unit, and the customer's complaining that, hey, I lost my charge, or whatever the situation might be in this case. All right. First thing I want to do is I want to disconnect my high side and my low side hoses. All right, and I resecure my gauges back on my unit. All right. Now I got my low side. Now I've got this A coil. Now hopefully by now you've understood how to find the low side and the high side. If you don't, you need to go back and understand that thoroughly. Remember, typically with most units, the larger size pipe is going to be your low side. But also a giveaway here is right here. These tubes, these are feeder tubes. Those feeder tubes, all right, automatically tell you it's on the high side, all right, automatically, because it's the one step right to the after the metering device. All right, so we take off our caps. Now, there may be a metal can, a metal container to put this stuff in. If not, just set them up on top. But we need to ensure that they're all back in there. Also check to be sure that the valve stem is in there. Because if the valve stem isn't in there, the depressor will not work. Okay? So, get it on there. My low side secured. I do the same to my high side. Okay. Now, both my compound gauge hose and my high side gauge hose is hooked up. The next thing I need to do is I need to, by the rules, I got to put in 20 pounds or PSIG of R22 refrigerant. So, remember I told you that my refrigerant hose is the only one that I use to put in or take out refrigerant with. All right. I'll connect that. Now, how do I know when I have enough refrigerant in my system? The book says 20 PSIG, pounds per square inch gauge. So we're going to look at our gauge, and you know, it isn't a proper science, but you know, if you get 30 pounds per square inch gauge in there, okay, nobody's going to complain about it, all right, because it's de minimis anyway. Anything that is in your system for leak check purposes will be blown out into the atmosphere afterwards. That's legal. Taking a full unit and blowing the charge, that's illegal. So pay attention to it unless you have a big bank account. All right, so I want to double check to be sure that my knobs are all tight on my unit. I double check to be sure everything's locked into place. All my hoses are confirmed tight. All right, now I'm going to open this up, and at this point you don't need a scale, okay? All you're trying to do is fill the system enough so that when you're looking for the leak with the leak detector and the bubbles, you can find it, all right? Now remember, this is R22. Let me throw in a little problem here. R410A, which you're going to be working on, all right? R410A is only done with the nitrogen. You do not use 410 refrigerant, all right? Because it can't be detected, okay? So you're just going to use the nitrogen, all right? With the older systems, R22 systems, that's what you're going to do. All right. So here's my refrigerant. You have to think about this. I've opened up this can, and the refrigerant is flowing to my gauge set. So if I open this up, all right, now I have my refrigerant into my gauge system. It's gone in nowhere else. Now I can open up my low side, and that's basically all I'm really going to do on this because it goes in so fast and it's a small frame. But if you're doing a complete system, then you may want to open up both high and low side. But when I open up my low side, I turn it on, and you're going to see the needle move over, all right? You see that? Now, it's kind of like a guessing game, all right? See how I left it on there too long? I got it about 30 PSIG. Well, that's okay. Nobody's going to send me to jail, all right? The next thing I got to do is I've closed my low side, and I'm closing my refrigerant side. I come back to my can, and I close my can. Now I take off my refrigerant hose. Now you'll lose some refrigerant that's in the hose. Don't worry about that. I take that same refrigerant hose now, and I'm moving down to my nitrogen bottle, and I connect it there. I want to be sure that my valve, my main valve, is backed off, and that my refrigerant flow meter valve is closed. So the first thing I need to do is be sure that this valve is backed off, that this is closed. I'm going to reach up here and slowly turn my nitrogen on until my tank pressure gauge reads. Then I'm going to just open it up 3 or 4 turns so that I can get as much in there as possible. The next thing I want to do is I want to regulate the amount of air that's coming into my system. And that's where this valve comes into play. All right? And for our training purposes, you only need to move it up a couple notches on the black scale. All right? Or correction, on the red scale. All right? Let's just say 50. All right? Then you're going to open up this valve, and it's going to go up and it's going to drop back down. All right? Because all that nitrogen has gone right up into this system right here. Again, we open up the valve, and we open up our low side. Now we can open up the low side and the high side at this time to try to fill it as fast as we can. All right. Now this may take 30 to 45 seconds. On a complete system, it may take you as many minutes as 2 to 5 minutes. It just depends on how much pressure you're allowing to flow through that system. For training purposes, we're just doing this. All right? So we're closing off our low side, our high side, and our refrigerant, in this case, the nitrogen side of the hose. Now, the system is filled. Now my idea is to find my leak. Well, you pull out your leak detector, and in this one, it's pretty basic. Turn it on and give it a few minutes to set itself. What it's doing is balancing out the system and checking it. It does a self-check on it. Now, from your readings, you know that refrigerant is heavier than air. So it's all going to go to the bottom. Do not start at the bottom because the machine's going to automatically go off. What you want to do is go through, check the obvious areas. Oh, right there, you'll hear it going off. All right, and somewhere in that element, all right, is the leak. So I turn it off because either the homeowner or yourself is going to throw that thing away because of the piercing noise it makes constantly. And open up your gas leak bubbles. Now we know that that went off somewhere in here, this area. So you saturate that area. Oh, see there? And hold it so that you can see those bubbles thoroughly. All right? Now, there may be more than one leak in here. So don't just take for granted that that's the only one. Check and be sure that you're squared away and there's no more leaks. That's this phase of the training. Remember, R22, your gauges of your choice, it really doesn't matter. All right? Your nitrogen, your leak detector, bubbles, and your low unit. Now, we're still not done because, of course, that's going to stay in the system for a little bit anyway. What I want to do now is I'm coming down to my unit because my nitrogen, and this stuff is expensive, all right? So what you want to do is be sure that you turn off any means of getting this nitrogen out into the hose system because you know that it's leaking right out. Once you found your leak, shut off your valve, shut off the gas now, all right? And this is an inert gas. Be sure you shut that off. And then what you can do is you can open up this valve or this hose, disconnect it right here. Okay. And then just open up that valve and it'll drain it. Okay? You got to learn to do this properly because if these gauges are stuck in the up position, that spring is in the tight position. And what's going to cause it is eventually it's going to weaken the spring. All right? Now when you're done, connect your hose back up there because you may want to do this 2 or 3 times. All right? When you walk away from here, you should not be able to look, or you should not be able to have to use your notes to look at what you're doing. If you're not comfortable with how to do this in the sequence, proper sequence, you haven't accomplished the task. Now, once my hose is connected here, I'm ensuring that all my gauges are closed and this valve is closed. Now I back this off. That's important because the next student that opens this up, and if this hasn't been backed off, that spring is going to wing out, and these run about $140. They're $70 a repair. All right? So please, it's your money that you're screwing around with here. All right? So now everything is up and up. We've gone through all the equipment. We know that how to use all the equipment. It is going to be up to you, the student, to ensure that you go through this until you are positively sure how to use those gauges, how to work which valves, which hoses go where, how to use your nitrogen bottle, all right, how to use your leak detector, and how to use your bottle. If you spray this refrigerant out accidentally, that's minus 40 degrees. 410A is so low pressure, or so high pressure that the temperature is so low that it will actually give you third-degree burns on your hands. All right, so that it's not something to play with. So please pay well attention to what's going on. Do not take for granted that you think you know this one time through, because you're going to be evaluated on it later on, and nobody's going to help you. And you should be able to do this, boom, 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 because this is your career field. Don't hesitate. Now, when you're all done with this, be sure that you take everything off and put it back the right way and where you found it. Do not take any shortcuts, because this is your equipment. If I have to go fix it, that means another student is losing out. It's a team operation here. Since I'm only doing this once for you guys, you know, and just be patient, because some of these hoses want to give you a hassle getting back on, especially when you got little fat fingers. All right, so everything's good here. Be sure you turn off the unit. All right, stow it away properly. I have my bottles, my cans secured. I'm done. Oops, no I'm not. The caps, put them back on so that the next student has it. Now you notice I only put one back on. If by chance you had any refrigerant in here or nitrogen left in there, this one isn't so important, because it's going to leak out. But if you leave a charge in the unit anytime, you're going to have to remove it, all right? And just use the valve stem remover cap and just loosen up. You hear it coming out? Now, if there's a lot of pressure, let it drain out. If there isn't that much pressure, it'll just come out by itself, all right? I'll just take my gloves off and then reattach that. Be sure that it's firm. Don't sit there and be Mighty Mouse and tighten this thing up, all right? Just firm it up. All right? I know it's, sometimes it's a real pain. Wearing your gloves, wearing your glasses. But without it, you're going to end up getting injured. And I have plenty of students that can verify that have taken the shortcut or in a hurry and ended up getting burnt, all right? You know, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink it. So now, do not move on until you know this lab, because the next lab is just adding on to it. And if you still don't understand how to use these gauges, you're wasting your time. All right? So please take the time, do it as many times as you want, come back in 72 hours and do it again. It has to become second nature, please. All right? You will make your life so much easier, trust me. This is the time to train. Out in the field, they may or may not give you time to train. You tell them, hey, look, I'm certified, I know what I'm doing, and you screw it up, they're going to start wondering. And everybody screws it up, but you only screw it up so many times before they start getting tired, all right? Because if you didn't find the leaks or you didn't fix them properly, and you got to go back out there, you're going back on your dime. I guarantee you that, especially with times as they are now. So pay attention, all right? Be confident, understand what you have to do, and we'll help you all the way through it.